Hi, I'm Katell Le Goulven, and this is Mission to Change, the show where I hear from people who turn business into a force for good and learn about their journey to make it happen. In our last episode, we heard from Mila Lokik on how social enterprises can partner with governments to scale impact. And in this episode, we look at how they can work with corporates to do just that. This time, we look at it from the corporate vantage point. We explore how they meet and how they partner with social enterprises, as well as what works and what does not. To bring you this theory, we have INSEAD Professor Felipe Monteiro.
Hi, Katell. I am Felipe Monteiro. I'm a strategy professor at INSEAD. And my research is about how corporates collaborate with startups to become more innovative and sustainable.
And to bring you practice, we have INSEAD alum and head of innovation and sustainability at Enel X, Fabio Tentori.
Hi, Katell. Hi, Felipe. I'm Fabio Tentori, and I manage innovation and technology for Enel X, is the branch of Enel Group, which is dedicated to creating innovative solutions for all of our clients. And I do that mostly by collaborating with startups.
So, Felipe, let me start with you. You just mentioned that your research is really focusing on the relationship between corporates and startups. So you work at that interface of corporate and enterprise, and you've studied that extensively. So can you tell us how it works? Why do corporates seek solutions from entrepreneurs, and why are entrepreneurs searching when they connect to corporates? How does that work?
So let me start with why corporates do that, okay? And maybe if I were to mention three main steps, is a lot of them do the search to work with startups because they're looking for novel solutions. They are new businesses, they are with new challenges, and their internal R&D pipeline will not provide the solutions for that. Okay, so that's reason number one. Quite common, what they have is, it's not that they don't have the solution, they have part of the solution. As you know, a lot of innovation is knowledge recombination. So many times the role of kind of partnering with startups would be, how together with what I'm doing, we can recombine knowledge and come up with something new. And I would say there's a third one, which is equally important, is by working with startups and with entrepreneurs, this helps organizations challenge their dominant logic. And as they interact with startups, as they collaborate with them, many times that fundamentally challenges the assumptions of how large corporates see the world, the business models. So, from the corporate side, if I were to say the main three reasons are those, when it comes to startups, it's very interesting, right? They're going to work with those big corporates because they need money. They need capital, right? And we have a lot of companies that they have those corporate venture funds, right? CVCs, corporate. And I think what we see more and more is actually corporates, what they provide and what startups are looking for is, I want you to be our client. So my risk with you is not about you is venture capital, but it's venture client. So this venture client model, where corporates, what they offer to a startup is say, no, if we work together, I will stress test your product, right? You're going to work with my scientists, with my R&D team. And no, I have 45 million customers. I have 100 million customers. We will help you stress test what you're doing, see how to adapt to large corporates to scale it up. And if it works, I'm going to be your first client. So my risk is being your client rather than I'm putting capital equity on you.
That's when everything works well, right? What stands in the way typically of such collaboration being more effective?
I think that most of the times the issue is not access, is action, right? It is, I connect with you, but nothing happens out of that. Right, so introduce me to a very cool startup, and nothing happens. And I think there's something going on there in terms of action. There are mainly two reasons for lack of action in large corporates. One reason relates to, many times corporates, they don't understand. Is a cognitive issue. Is a technical issue. I don't understand what the startup is doing. I'm not doing research in this area. It's a new area. I'm venturing on something new. So I don't have, and the technical term is absorptive capacity. I don't have the capacity to absorb what you're doing. So it is cognitive, right? And what corporates can do, right? They will train their executives, right? They expose, they will do, they come to INSEAD is Silicon Valley, right? And they get exposed to what's happening there. So that's one source of problem, which is not understanding it, not having the absorptive capacity. A totally different kind of motive or reason for this not working has nothing to do with cognition, but has to do with motivation. Many times, that collaboration, what startups are telling corporates are things that people don't want to hear internally. Many times they will come up with solutions which are pretty disruptive and pretty challenging to existing dominant business models. So when I'm having conversation with startups and corporates about this, I typically say, think about those two reasons. First, many times it's not about access, it's about action. Two, when you see that things don't work, try to see if they don't work because you're not getting it, right? Or versus you're getting it, but the political battles, right? The internal politics and the political battles to act on this simply needs to be solved. And I think this is, of course, there are a lot of other small reasons, but those two categories, I think they encompass a lot of what are the main obstacles, why they don't work.
Challenging the status quo, right? I think that's, I can see the politics of that. Is there anything specific for impact enterprise, impact startup that would either make that collaboration easier or more complex from your perspective?
I think there are two things going on, Katell. One is, on the one hand, if you think about impact entrepreneurs, many times, the outcomes are even less clear. Maybe time horizons are even more disparate between what the impact entrepreneur really needs to do, right? And what corporates are doing. Their timing might be very different. So that would be an aggravation of the problems I just described. The only thing which is maybe is very timely now, if I put myself on the shoes of many corporates at this point, right? They are making huge commitments on net zero. They're making huge announcements, to different stakeholders of what they will do. And if you look at their kind of innovation pipelines, maybe they're not quite as ready to deliver on all those commitments. So I think if on the one hand, it makes more, the mere nature of social entrepreneurship sometimes will make it more difficult for those things to work within corporates. On the other hand, I think now what we have is a very specific, very timely, very time sensitive, that I think, right, is a great moment for social entrepreneurs and impact entrepreneurs to collaborate with corporates, because corporates do need that.
And now over to Fabio to hear what and how corporates are engaging with social enterprises. During Enel's transformation process to become 100% renewable, Fabio was leading the company's corporate engagement with startups and enterprises. That meant big commitments demanding a deep transformation of the company, similar to those Felipe just described.
In Enel, we put together what is innovation and sustainability. We created something which is called innovability. We realized that we want, as an energy company, to become 100% renewable and to drive the future of energy toward the net zero by 2040, 2050 for everybody else. In order to do that, though, we realized that without innovation, we cannot get there. We would say innovation is our tool to get there, because it's innovation of business models, it's innovation of technologies that is needed. And this innovation can only be done if you do it together with entrepreneurs that are fast, that know the technology much better than you can, and at the same time, they give you access to something that usually in a corporate you might miss, which is a very strong motivation to make things happen, and make them happen in a fast way and with a potentially large impact.
Felipe just mentioned that access that is not really the problem. The problem is then turning it to action, right? So how did that work out for you?
So the main thing to do there is to bring business people to the table in the discussion from the early stages. Because you need to align the business with what the startup can give as a potential solution.
It seems that in Enel's case, the reason why that could work, bringing even business people so that they could be reactive to startup solution, is because Enel had defined clearly a change of culture when it came to innovation within the company, correct?
Correct, yes. Changing the culture of internal people, internal stakeholders is a super important thing to do when it comes to innovation, right? Because you need to teach and you need to actually involve people in being innovative. The first challenge that you might have sometimes is, let's say, somebody that doesn't want to change, right? Felipe was talking before about the motivation. If there is a missing motivation to change something, to change a process, to find a new technology, then that would be the worst for the collaboration with the startup, because the collaboration would die, if not at the beginning of the project, it would die in the middle of the project, or it would never be, let's say, implemented on a large scale, and so it will never create a real impact. Changing the culture of people inside the group is probably the biggest challenge that you have when you start doing innovation.
Just jumping in here, I think as an outsider, right, when I compare Enel and what Fabio has been doing with some other organizations, some organization may decide to have all this area that is responsible for open innovation isolated, right? So I am the one finding the solutions. I am talking to the corporate, to the startups, and eventually someone's going to work with those. And this is super hard. So I think what Enel does is basically, as Fabio was describing, involving the business line since the beginning is very important, right? Because it is embedded. So the open innovation, in their cases, the open innovability, it is embedded in the business unit. So it is not just about, I talk to startups, but, you already start engaging the ones who have the ability to act.
What's the most exciting venture that you work with? The one that is like your pet example of the one that got you and your business partner super excited at Enel?
The most exciting ventures that we are working on, in my opinion, is the one with Magaldi Energy. Magaldi is a startup in Italy. They do something extremely simple. They created a thermal energy storage solution. They use energy coming from solar panels, warm up thanks to some resistance, some sand that they have inside the container, and thanks to that they are able to store heating that then can be used in order to decarbonize the production of heat for industrial processes. Enel will work with Magaldi Energy in order to install this solution at our client side. So we have a lot of clients in the energy industry. We provide them electricity. Some of them we provide also natural gas. Our goal is to provide them solutions that help them to decarbonize. So Magaldi is the technology. The client is the one who uses the technology, and we are that integrator in the middle. If we would be able to implement this opportunity with Magaldi and with other similar companies to use solar power, warm up some sand, and then store the heat for the industrial processes, we are going to solve 20% of the problem that the world has with emission when it comes to using energy as a primary source.
So thanks very much. That's very clear, Fabio. So how does the partnership exactly work? And what's the finance part of the relationship here? When I'm listening to you, my initial thought would be to think that Enel would have an incentive to purchase that startup, to acquire it and make it its own. Is that the objective on trying to scale that solution within the company, or how is that handled?
We come to collaboration with startups. We believe actually that money is not really a problem, because if you have a good idea and you get some traction in the market, you will probably be able to find money by experienced VC fund or private equity fund that are able to, and they know very well how to finance this opportunity. What we do, we look for an industrial collaboration. We, of course, pay when it comes to making a project, because we realize that there are some needs to buy equipment, to make a trial, to make what we call a proof of concept. And all of that is fine for us to put some CapEx, some OpEx against it. But then we start a collaboration with the goal, in our case, to be the integrator, to be the one who manages the relationship with the final client. That's what we want to keep. And we leave the opportunity to the startup to manage and develop the technology. The combination means that we could be potentially successful and create impact because all of us, we are doing what we know how to do in the best. Funds, VC funds especially, can provide capital. They know how to do it. They know where to get out. They know who to sell to. Entrepreneurs provide the technology, provide the opportunity, the ability to scale fast the technology. And what we do, we provide our industrial knowledge and the connection to the final client. When we started in October of 2016, we opened our first hub in Tel Aviv, and then we went to San Francisco, to Boston. We opened 10 of them around the world. And so we are actually quite present everywhere. And since then, numbers have grown dramatically. Like at the beginning, I remember we would do probably 10, 15 collaborations with startups per year. And we now reached more than 100 collaborations in all of our business lines. We saw in the years more than 15,000 solutions. We were able to collaborate with about 500 of them, and we have been able then to scale the solutions that we work with startups in about 25% of those cases. So more than 100 startups we scaled on our businesses at a global level.
Felipe, let me go back to you because you actually bring that case to the classroom. You also have done and continue doing research with Enel on that particular partnership and engagement strategy. You are working actually on identifying the contribution to impact of the startups ecosystem that has been created around Enel. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so I think what's fascinating, Katell, is that a lot of organizations, the impact metric will just be how many new products I created of this. It's a purely innovation metric. And I think Enel was doing this, right? So what Fabio described, yes, we scaled up those 120 something scale up. What is also interesting, that's what we're doing, right? I'm doing this with my colleague, Ivan Kavishnik from INSEAD, is actually we are mapping and looking at the level of materiality, right? And to what extent those external solutions are material to Enel. And although this is still research in progress, it's very interesting to see, right, that close mapping of, yes, you are looking for startups that are solving issues that are really material to you. Because, you could partner with any kind of organizations, they could be super sustainable, but not necessarily material to you. So I think what we see in Enel's strategy was, okay, let me kind of partner with those that will help us solve the challenges that Fabio described, which are really material to us. What you see in the evolution of that approach, because the approach originally is about global open innovation. I think the evolution of that approach is becoming global open innovability, right? And you can have the merged words, innovations, sustainability together, or you can say separately, but the notion is the same. What you're trying to get is not only the impact in terms of how innovative you become, but also how accessing the external technologies allowed you to be more sustainable, and how you measure sustainability in that sense, how material they were to you, how they helped you move to a different place. So I think what you get is you get that combination of innovation metrics with sustainability metrics.
To what extent is this particular case of engagement with startups for innovability something that can be replicated for other companies?
When we started this, right, and when I wrote the case just before COVID, when we talk about innovability, and Fabio kind of made a testimony a number of times, people have no even an idea what it is. What innovability? What do you mean by innovability? I think what you see more and more, and I see as I go around the world and teach this case, is see a lot of organizations using it, right? So because I think what is replicable? I think what's replicable, as we had discussed before, is this idea that this has to be embedded. And this has to combine a change in culture, structure, and processes. It's not about just kind of creating a new area. It is those three things together. And three, you companies more and more, they need to deliver on this, right? They need to deliver not only on their innovation metrics, but they need to deliver on whatever they committed in terms of sustainability. So I think if you combine this idea that it has to be embedded and has to be really connected, innovation and sustainability, and two, if you look what Enel did, which was a major transformation that entailed changing culture, processes, and structure and incentives, then you look at a lot of organizations and they say, yeah, this is what they can. Would they all call it innovability? Not sure, right? Would they all be the same innovation hubs where Fabio is? Not sure. But I think those principles, I think these are the most important principles. And you see, and I see, even companies, different parts of the world, using innovability, using even the label that Enel created.
Felipe, when you meet these CEOs from other organizations around the world, what is then the top advice that you typically give them on how to work with impact entrepreneurs to accelerate, progress on the sustainability agenda?
If I were to single out one thing, is I think they have to be super transparent about what they can do and what is realistic in terms of the engagement with the startups. Because I think it's always better that they can really provide what is possible rather than a wish list that they know those things will never take off. And what would take off in a time frame that, by then startups will either be dead or to have their IPO and they don't need to work with those companies anymore. So I think that sense of having the self-awareness of the organization capabilities and situation to give a transparent notion to the startups, I think that goes a long way. Because actually, what you're building long-term relationships, not only with a specific startup, but with the whole ecosystem. And I have witnessed a number of those is, companies say, yes, we are super interested, we are collaborating startups, etc. Right? And the startups really pay attention, spend the time and scarce resources working with those large corporates. And nothing happens, right? And that backfires big way, not only for that startup, but then they start talking, it's not worth working with company A or B because, they come over this big wish list. We thought they were serious about it. Nothing happens.
And for social entrepreneurs, so that and in this impact entrepreneurs, so that they don't lose their time with corporate, what's the key advice you would give them so that they actually can do that screening and not spend their scarce resources for something that won't be productive?
I think, Katell, the more they understand how corporates work, okay, I think the better. If you understand how corporates work, you can be right. You can really be more strategic and precise on how to target them. Because if what they want is to scale up what you do and work with you and be your client, not your investor, is very important. Because sometimes I tell entrepreneurs is if what you're approaching, you're not looking for capital. So what you have to, the way to train what you're providing the corporates is what's the specific challenge you're helping them to solve, okay? Because otherwise they pitch, I can do A, I can do B, I can do C. And that's not what corporates are looking for, right? They're not looking for an exit. They're looking for a solution to a specific challenge.
What advice would you give them?
So my very simple advice to them is avoid the greenwashing. It's just avoid the marketing and the communication of innovation. Ask to the corporate to show you the business. Just don't meet just with the startup guys, with the innovation guys. Go meet with the business, talk to them, understand how really serious they are, understand whether they have a plan or not already in mind for the future, not for now, of course, in order to scale that opportunity. And only when you get the right answer to what you're looking for, then engage really in a partnership.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Mission to Change, a podcast by the INSEAD Hoffman Global Institute for Business and Society in collaboration with Intent. If you liked what you heard, please follow, download, and subscribe to the show. Our podcast was created and produced by Human Humans. Original sound, music, and mixing by Palomino. Coordination, research, and script editing by Isada Stark. You can find me on LinkedIn at Katell Le Goulven, where you can leave me a message about what you liked and what you learned.